Hey guys, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Siyathokoza Nsizwane and I'm a life and relationship coach, and I speak on anything that relates to life, relationships, and faith. And so today we're going to be speaking about a very, very interesting topic, which is marriage contracts. Well, the different types of marriage contracts. And I brought in a friend of mine who's a lawyer and an expert in his field, and he's going to be the one that's just like taking us through the different types of marriage, civil marriage contracts that are there, and their different pros and cons. So I'm really excited about this video and the segment, and I can't wait for us to get into it. So guys, like I said, we have a very special guest today. He's a lawyer, he's also into real estate, but he'll explain all of that, and he'll be the one that's taking us through the different types of marriage contracts that are available, well, civil marriage contracts that are available to us in South Africa. And I think it'll be such an informative topic to dive in on, especially for those of you who are considering getting married and would like to learn more about the different types of marriage contracts that are there and their different pros and their different cons. But before we can get into that, sir, can you please kindly introduce yourself? What's your name, what you do, and where are you based?
Okay. Thank you for having me. It's a privilege to be here. My name is Boshoff. I am an attorney. I'm the founder and the director of Boshoff Attorneys, which is based in Newcastle.
Yeah.
And that is northern KZN. I'm also into real estate. It's one of the big ones at our company as well.
Yeah.
So if you are looking at buying or selling a property, so I am the man to contact.
Or any legal matters, I'm sure, that
Yes.
pertain to real estate property.
That's correct.
Yeah. So let's dive into this topic. So what are the different types of civil marriage contracts that are there?
Okay. Yeah. So the main one, which is common in South Africa, is the marriage in community of property. So in the absence of any contracts, then marriage is automatically in community of property. So, for example, if you go to Home Affairs, you decide to take your spouse to Home Affairs, or you get married.
Well, your future spouse.
Yes, or you get married in church without the antenuptial contract, of which we're still going to go deeper into it.
Yeah.
That marriage is automatically in community of property.
Okay.
And the implications of that is that if, for whatever reason, the spouse separate or decide to divorce, so the assets are 50-50 joined.
Okay.
So whatever that you guys whatever you had before and whatever that was accumulated during the marriage, that's 50-50.
So does that mean you also share debts, since you share assets?
Everything, your risk, your debts, credits that you came in with and accumulated during the marriage, it's all 50-50 when you divorce. Yeah.
So what happens if, like, is that still the case even if the spouse dies? Like one of the spouse dies, so does their debts die with them, or if there's no like prenuptial agreement or whatever?
Unfortunately, that's another situation. So if the one of the spouses dies, the other party is still involved in their life, because that half shared in has to be transferred to the existing spouse.
Yeah. So for example, if I get married and God forbid my husband dies, and we in community of property, like we went to we have no prenuptial agreements or pre-existing agreements before us going to Home Affairs. When they die, I incur they assets as well as they debts.
Yes. So basically, the creditors can claim from their estate.
Okay.
Yes. So then if you do not want your marriage to be in community of property for those reasons, then before getting married, you can enter into an antenuptial contract, which has to be concluded before the marriage. Yeah. That's
so that means you have a lot of law terminology has to be concluded. So what that means, it has to be signed
and registered. It's also registered by the deeds office.
Okay.
And it's prepared by a specialist called a notary.
Okay.
So a notary prepares it, and then it's signed and registered with the deeds office.
Yeah.
Prior to the marriage. So what that one, there's two parts to it. Okay. It can either be out of commuter property with the accrual or without the accrual.
What does that?
Yes. What the accrual, it means anything that is accrued during the marriage. So anything accumulated, whether it's debt, again, profits, whatever, it's joined.
Okay.
But whatever you guys had before the marriage, it's still yours and it's his.
Okay.
Yes.
So he has a lot of law, so I'll try and simplify as best as I can. Yeah. So what I'm taking is that when you get a prenuptial agreement with accrual, it means that whatever I had, if I'm getting married, whatever I had before the marriage remains mine. Yes. But whatever me and my spouse build together or have to accumulate together, that's ours to share. That includes the debts, the assets, and whatnot.
Again, in that one, again, if they decide to divorce, the same applies. The division of the joint is only on the accrual, not before the marriage.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right. That sounds...
And then if it's out of commuter property, excluding the accrual, that one is known as out.
Okay.
Yes. So whatever you had prior to the marriage and whatever you had during the marriage, it's still yours. It's his.
Yeah.
So whatever debts they incurred, the creditors only chase him or her.
Yeah.
Profits as well. Even where one spouse becomes insolvent.
Yeah. So, what does insolvent mean?
Insolvent basically you cannot pay your debt. Your debts are more than what you can earn.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
So if with that one, whatever is yours is yours. Even if there's something we accumulate together in the marriage, whatever you contributed comes to you. Whatever he or she contributed goes to them.
Yeah.
Okay, that seems to make sense. So what happens now? For example, if I die, does that, if I get married, I have a prenuptial agreement and I die, and how do I then leave? Like, what's going to happen to my thing? How do I need, if I do a will, can I still add someone as like my beneficiaries, even if I did a prenuptial agreement? I hope that makes sense.
Okay, so with that one, yes, you can. In fact, a will is one of the biggest documents that dictate what happens to your assets once you passed on. And so if you are married after contract, you can still bequeath your assets or whatever you own to your spouse or to your children, and you can do so on your own. You don't have to do a joint will because the assets are not joint. Yes. So you can still bequeath everything that you have if you want to your spouse,
even if we married with a prenup.
With a prenup.
Okay,
that is correct.
All right, that makes sense, because I think a lot of why this becomes tricky with especially couples who are considering getting married is that they are a bit hesitant to get married, like to have a prenuptial agreement, because they think that whenever, God forbid, we divorce, like you won't have anything, I won't leave you anything, like if we divorce and things like that. And
so basically it's not necessarily about that. If you guys go into a marriage, obviously you need to carefully think about the risk that comes with them, especially if you are business-minded people or own businesses, because that's a big one where it hits financially. So if that's the case, you can still enter into that antenuptial. And like I said, if then you feel like if this person decides to leave me, I will be left with nothing. Then you have a will, or you can even have a trust, a family trust, where everything is put in the trust, and you are safeguarded in that case.
Okay, that's very informative. Okay, so what are the different pros and cons of these like marriage contracts?
Okay, so with the one in terms of property, the difficulties that couples normally have is when it comes to, because everything is joint. So if you're buying a property, you're buying a car, any contract that you sign, both parties have to sign. It's a must. So the little bit of difficulties is where you need something urgently and your spouse cannot, obviously.
Probably is out of the country.
Yes. Or maybe you'll have a little bit of a quarrel and it's like, I'm not signing there for that time being. So those are the difficulties. And And another one which people like in relationship is surprises.
Yeah.
So if your spouse decides he wants to buy a car or whatever, a house is a surprise. It's a difficult one because it's marriage income to property.
They must go co-sign
the
documents.
So that surprise is already ruined.
Yeah.
So whereas with the antenuptial, like I said, if it's without the accrual, then obviously you don't require the other spouse. So signatures in that case.
Yeah.
However, it's not to say that when people are married out of community of property, they do as they please.
Yeah.
It's still a marriage.
Yeah.
There's that communication, mutual communication in terms of contract or whatever that parties want to do to say that. It's just the formality of where there's no necessarily need for the other party to.
So it's easier to surprise my spouse.
Yes, it's easier.
In terms of business, like purpose, which marriage contracts will be a better marriage contract if you guys are business people?
Yeah. Business is a very risky. I think everyone knows. We've seen it with COVID, which has hit. Nobody expected. It was unforeseen, and a lot of businesses like closed down and all of that. So if you guys are the couple is business minded or into businesses, then they're out of commercial property. You will be there to do. So if something happens in the office and there's creditors wanting their monies, they don't necessarily have to go for the joint estate. So they can only target the person whose business name is in. So only that. So at least at home you still have shelter, still have a vehicle.
Because debtors, obviously, when they come collecting, especially with businesses, because in a business the loans that you get is a bigger amount of loans. So in order to cover the cost or the money that you owe them, the first thing they'll go for is cars and houses. So if you married in community of property,
all those assets are at risk.
At risk. So in order to protect your spouse or protect your family if you're a business person, I think that would be a wiser,
the wiser one. So I think before one decides to get married, I think it's best to get a little bit of legal advice on these types. Because like I said, the future is unpredictable. Anything can happen. Today you have finances, tomorrow it's another story.
And I think as a family, like in terms of like, because this is marriage contracts, I mean, you're planning to build a life together with this person. You want to get married, you want to have children with them if that's what you want. Like you always want to be in a position where in case anything happens, your family still remains protected. They still have a shelter, they still have a vehicle, all those things. So I think like how you're saying, like it's very important before you get married to kind of like weigh the options of the different types of marriage contracts that are there. And I think for me, growing up and with our parents were not exposed to this type of information, and most of them are married in community of property. And when their spouses die, they incur the debts of their spouse, because it's not necessarily about, because the first thing when people think, you want to get a prenuptial agreement, you're thinking about divorce, but it's not necessarily always the case. You can get a prenuptial agreement or with accrual, without accrual, the different types that you explained. You have to think about like your family and how and which contracts will best protect like your family as a whole. It's not necessarily all about divorce, even though people do sometimes think about that. It's okay, what if I do get divorced? I want to protect myself and all those things, but it's not always the case.
That's correct. And I think why it's also important to think about it before getting married, because some people, they realize it once they're already married. Like I said, so in the absence of this antenuptial contract, the marriage is automatically in commercial property. So some couples, they get married in commercial property, and when they're in, then they realize, because of 1 and 2, we should have got married out of commercial property. You can still do so, but the cost of that is more expensive than doing the act.
If you started with like your research and actually getting a prenuptial agreement.
Because now to change your marriage, post-marriage, you have to now apply to the High Court, which is a bit costly than having to draw the antenuptial from the start.
Okay. So I've recently heard, so I want you to share a bit of information of that. I recently heard that of customary law, and that if you get married like the customary way, you are automatically married in community of property. Like, is that the case? Can you please like take us?
Yeah, a customary marriage is also one of the big ones in South Africa, where there's a lot of confusion. Some people, they're not sure whether they married, first of all, or whether they married in community or out of community of property.
Yeah.
Again, with customary marriage, in the absence of the antenuptial contract, that marriage is considered in community of property.
Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously with customary, there's some main requirements for it to be valid.
Yeah.
And one of them is that it must be negotiated, entered into, and celebrated according to the customary law of that.
So what basically you mean? The lobola, if you lobolat, if you membesat, if there was white cake or whatever you do, like customary, like in your culture, that is considered as you are married by law.
Yes.
According to customary law.
That is correct. Just those requirements, once those have been met and that marriage, it's a valid customary law marriage.
And it's automatically
in community of property.
If you did all those things, if you did all those things before you signed a marriage, a prenuptial agreement.
Yes, that's
okay,
correct. So and again with the confusion in terms of the where people they only did those celebration, the customary part, and something happens again. Boom, divorce again. And they're not sure what's going to happen, like how are the assets going to be divided. So you can always approach the court. In terms of that, and obviously they're going to want to have proof of that.
Because there's no contract in a customary marriage.
That's why now it's advisable actually that you after conclusion of that you register your marriage with Home Affairs, your customary marriage.
So after the lobola or after the mempe, so you go in
and register it. You can register it normally they're like within 3 months. Or after conclusion of that, and you register, then you can have your marriage certificate as proof.
But if you didn't do this, say for example, someone who's watching and they didn't like, know to go to Home Affairs and whatever, and now they splitting up or they divorcing in a sense, even though there was no really physical marriage contract. Like, what can they produce as like evidence? Okay, this we were actually what would be considered as evidence of their marriage?
So first of all, in the absence of that marriage certificate in the customary law does not nullify the marriage. So that marriage is still valid. Even though there's no contract. Despite being registered. So for you, as proof, you need to prove letters during the lobola, the negotiation. The
letter that the potential fiance brings to your house.
So that's one of the things, and the photos of the ceremony usually play a big role, and the witnesses who were present, especially during the negotiation, who can attest to that at court.
All right, that makes so much sense. Okay, so are there any costs that are involved in these type of marriage, in these different marriage contracts?
Basically very minimal cost. Especially with the out of community of property. So there's legal cost involved. So the notary will charge you obviously for preparing the antenuptial contract. But it's not much. It wouldn't be more than 10,000.
It's not much.
Even $5,000. Just depends which attorney you use. Notary.
Also, a notary is
a specialist.
It's an attorney that's a specialist.
Who prepares
prenuptial agreement.
Prenuptial. And what the others, they're in community of property. That's like by default where most of us go into without even knowing. And we realize
because it's not really like a contract. It's like a certificate that you produce, unless if it's customary, like you explained.
So basically, it's your wedding cost. Nothing much beyond that. Unless if you go to for Home Affairs again to sign there, it's very minimal.
It's like probably less than 100 rand.
And that's it.
Okay. So guys, I hope you learned a thing or two on the different types of marriage contracts that are there, and what you can take away from this is that go and get legal advice before you enter into a marriage, and be informed, like know which type of marriage contracts will best suit you and your potential spouse. And thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights on the different types of marriage contracts. I personally learned a lot. And we might have you back and stuff. So because I think this is such a very broad, topic, especially when it comes to like businesses and real estate and all those things. So I might bring you back to expand a bit on those things. But I really appreciate you taking your time and coming out and sharing your knowledge with us. And I hope you guys learned a thing or two. And don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, and hit the notification bell. And does your business also have like social media pages and all those things?
Yes, you can find us on our Facebook page, which is Boshoff Attorneys. Same on Instagram.
Yeah.
Boshoff Attorneys.
Okay, I'll link those on the description box below, and yeah, you guys can go and like on his social media page, ask him questions. I'm sure you or your assistants answers DMs and all those things, and they can call you. Can you please share your contact details if that's okay? Yeah.
Okay, our email address it's admin@soliboshofattorneys.co.za, and our contact number is 079 788 378. Yeah, you can find us there, and we'll be more than willing to help where we can.
Yeah, yes. And answer all your legal questions, or if you want to sue someone, as your guy. Okay, yeah. So thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. I hope you learned a thing or two. Like, subscribe, comment, hit the notification bell, and yeah, thank you so much. Bye.